Hi there, for today's Read Aloud, we will be listening to the story, The Crayon Man, the true story of the invention of Crayola crayons. So this story, I thought it'd be fun if we listened to this story. Guess who's reading it? It's going to be the author. So she's going to be reading it. The author, she's the one who actually wrote this book. So I thought that'd be kind of a fun little treat for us to listen to the story. Plus, it is a narrative nonfiction, which is what we're focusing on. I'm going to give you a moment to think back to what narrative nonfiction means, and then we can make our predictions and listen to the story. Okay, well, a narrative nonfiction is a story that gives you facts about a topic. But even though you're learning real information, it's told like a story. It sounds like a story, but it's nonfiction, okay? So what I'd like to do now is take a moment, use the cover and the title, The Crayon Man, to make a prediction on what you think is going to happen in this story. All right, if you need more time for your prediction, go ahead and pause the video. But as we're listening to this story, also pay attention to facts about a topic, okay? So we'll talk about the topic at the end, and we'll talk about some facts that we heard throughout the story. All right, The Crayon Man.
Once there was a man who saw color everywhere. He noticed the yellow-orange petals of the black-eyed Susans in his garden. He marveled at the rich scarlet-red tones of the cardinal's feathers. He admired the deep blue-greens of the waves in the sea. Color made him really, really happy.
So this is the author. This is the lady who wrote the words for this story. Okay?
But all day long at work, all he saw was black. Black dust, black tar, black smoke, black ink, black dye, black shoe polish. His name was Edwin Binney, and he was an inventor. He worked with his cousin, C. Harold Smith. Together, they were Binney and Smith. Harold was a great salesman. He loved to travel the world. Edwin was curious. He had a knack for listening and making what people needed. Edwin invented a new kind of inexpensive slate pencil that wrote very smoothly. It was gray. Children loved it. He invented a kind of chalk that wasn't dusty and didn't crumble. It was white. Teachers loved it. He invented a wax crayon that would wood and paper packaging. So when everyone, including Edwin's wife Alice, told him that children needed better, cheaper crayons, he listened. They said, "The crayons we have are big, dull, and clumsy. The lumps of colored clay only make fat, clunky lines. And the artist's crayons from Europe are far too expensive. They crumble and break easily. Some are even poisonous." Edwin thought about his company's inventions. When you drew a picture with their gray slate pencil, it rubbed off at the drop of a hat. When you drew a picture with their white chalk, it smudged everywhere. If you drew a picture with Edwin's new really black crayon, it was, well, really black. None of these inventions was any good for drawing in color. So Edwin listened and Edwin invented. In a small stone mill in Pennsylvania, in a top-secret lab, Edwin's team experimented. How could they make better, stronger crayons? Melted paraffin wax? Perhaps. Now for the crayon colors. Grinding, grinding, grinding up rocks and minerals into fine powders. Mixing, mixing. Slate for gray.
So we're learning about how, what? How crayons were made, right? So Edwin was a real person, and this is his story on how he created crayons. So these are some facts we're learning, okay?
Earth for yellow, red, and brown? Perhaps. Oh yes, and lapis for blue. Pounding, sifting, and heating the colored powders. Would they be bright enough? Edwin's team kept on trying. They kept on experimenting. They came home covered in color. They experimented some more and discovered a pinch of this pigment, a sploosh of that one, a little hotter, a little cooler, and voila, lots of different shades. Now there were greens, oranges, violets, and pinks too. Edwin came home covered in color. In a large tub at the mill, Edwin's team measured out the ingredients. Melted wax, clay to thicken, something for texture, colored powders, each in just the right amount every time to make a top secret formula. Slowly, carefully, stirring by hand, they poured the special formula into thin, crayon-shaped bowls, smaller than any other inventor's, just the right size for children's hands. The mixture cooled and hardened. Edwin watched, and Edwin waited. Finally, one summer evening in June 1903, Edwin came home covered in color, and he announced that he'd invented a new kind of colored crayon. But what should he call it? Alice had an idea. She said, let's mix the French word cray for stick of chalk and the word ola from the word oleaginous, meaning oily like the oily texture of the crayon wax, to invent a new word, Crayola. Edwin listened.
So that's another fun fact we just learned. We learned where the name Crayola came from. That's really cool. I did not know that.
Binney and Smith shipped out the first Crayola crayon boxes. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, brown, and black. 8 colored crayons for only a nickel. Edwin waited. Would children like them? Children did. Now they could draw a tiny green caterpillar or the big blue sky.
Give me a thumbs up. Do you like crayons? Yeah, they're very useful when we're trying to color in a picture.
Their drawings wouldn't smudge, and they wouldn't rub out. They were bright and could last a long, long time.
Crayons are also good for what? Adding detail to a picture.
Excitement over the new, colorful invention spread like wildfire. Admirers from far and wide flocked to marvel at Binney and Smith's inventions at the St. Louis World's Fair. The company's dustless chalk even won a gold medal. Proudly, Edwin and Harold showed it off, especially on their new Crayola crayon boxes. Every day, Edwin brought colorful bouquet from his garden to inspire the Crayola team. They made crayons in even...
Let's read these names. Tropical Rainforest, Robin's Egg Blue, Granny Smith Apple, Macaroni and Cheese. Those are fun names for crayons.
More different shades, and later asked children to help name some of them. At last, because of Edwin Binney, the man who saw color everywhere, who had a knack for listening and making what people needed, children everywhere could reach for just the right shade to draw anything. The end.
Okay, so that's the Crayon Man. Now, was this story a narrative nonfiction? It was. Did you learn real information? You did. What was the topic? The invention of crayons. Okay? Take a moment and think of one fact from this story. Something that you learned about the invention of crayons. Okay, some facts that I learned. The inventor of crowns, his name was Edwin Binney. He got a gold medal for his crowns. He sold the first crown boxes for a nickel, which is 5 cents. There was only 8 colors at first. We also learned where the name Crayola came from. So those are so many different little facts that we learned, and plus there's so many more. I hope you enjoyed today's read aloud, and then I'd like for you to take a moment and think, okay, what was the author's purpose for writing today's story, The Crayon Man? I'll give you a moment to think about it. All right, on the next slide, you'll have an opportunity to talk about why you think the author wrote this story. What was their purpose? Okay, I hope you enjoyed today's story, The Crayon Man.